Members, you are welcome to today's lecture, Introduction to Business Law by Nisima Dan. I was in another class briefly. Now we are back to business, and it is a continuation of the law of contract. Last time we looked at the definition of a contract. We defined a contract. We looked at types of contracts. We looked at essential elements of a valid contract. We also looked at remedies for the breach of a contract. I told you that in case there is a breach or a violation of a contract, then the aggrieved or injured party is entitled to remedies. Remedies are also called orders of court. And we looked at the different remedies: damages, quantum merit, specific performance, injunction, and rescission. After I also discussed for you discharge of a contract, and I told you that to discharge is also means to terminate or to dissolve. And discharge of a contract, I remember telling you that this is how contracts come and end. Obviously, when two parties enter into a legally binding agreement, time comes when the agreement elapses, and coming to an end is the same as discharge, terminated, or discharge, terminate, dissolve. So in case they say, explain how contracts are dissolved, how contracts are discharged, how contracts are terminated, using the same points which I discussed for you last week. They are dissolved through performance, they are dissolved through agreement, they are dissolved through breach, they are dissolved by operation of law, and they are also dissolved by frustration. So for today, let us go to another topic called vitiating factors of a contract. Vitiating factors of a contract. I hope everyone has the notes. And now I want to tell you the meaning of a vitiating factor. What is a vitiating factor? A vitiating factor, it is a factor which tends to change a valid contract and turn it into null and void. A factor that tend to affect the validity of the contract, they change or transform a valid contract and turn it into null and void. Meaning a contract is valid, it has the essentials as we looked at last time, the essentials like form, like offer, like consideration, like capacity of parties, like free consent. But now a vitiating factor, once it comes into a contract, it changes a valid contract and the contract becomes null and void. That is what we call by a vitiating. It affects the validity, and now the contract can no longer be enforceable by courts of law because it is now null and void. Which are the factors? Which are the vitiating factors that change a valid contract and it becomes null and void? The first factor is called the mistake. A mistake is the first vitiating factor of the contract. A mistake is an erroneous belief about something. Is an erroneous belief about something. A mistake once made, whether a mistake is of law or of fact, changes a valid contract and it becomes null and void. And I told you there are three types of mistakes. The first one is called a common mistake. Then I've talked of mutual mistake, and the last one is called unilateral mistake. What is a common mistake? A common mistake is where both parties assume a given state of affairs but the truth is different. Meaning, if it is a common mistake, both parties are mistaken. You and me are to contract, but we are mistaken about the facts of the contract. Meaning, both parties make that mistake. That is a common mistake. Then there is another mistake called the mutual mistake. Mutual mistake is where one party assumes one thing while the other party assumes completely a different thing. So they end up misunderstanding one another. You assume something, I also assume another thing. And you find one of us is wrong. Another one misunderstands you. That means with a mutual mistake, it means you assume something different from mine and you end up misunderstanding me. Then there is also unilateral mistake, where one of the parties is mistaken and the other party is aware of the fact. But he goes ahead to contract. For instance, in fraud is theft, open theft, etc. Let us look at another factor. Mistake is a vitiating factor. Number two, an undue influence. An undue influence is another vitiating factor. An undue influence. An undue influence, what does it mean? An undue influence, this means that if two parties enter into a contract, one of the parties of the contract, his freedom is infringed upon by the other party. It means that either one party does not have full freedom. He is acting under external influence. He lacks what we call the consensus of the mind or free consent. And I'm going to give instances where there is an undue influence. For instance, a parent contracting with a child, it means the child in most cases lacks freedom, since the child is always under the influence of the parent. Number two, doctor and patient. Obviously, the doctor enjoys superior position over the patient. Advocate, client, advocate is your lawyer, then the client is the person that is being represented by a lawyer. It means you have to follow what the lawyer is telling you. But in most cases, the lawyer may even lie to you, and you end up entering into a void contract. Then guardian and what? Where an undue influence is proved that it existed at the time of the contract, then the contract is voidable in favor of the party whose influence was dominated. Let us look at another vitiating factor of the contract called illegality. Illegality is a vitiating factor. What is illegality? Illegality is contracting over something which is prohibited by law. For instance, me and you contracting to steal, to murder, to rape, that is an illegality. And once the contract is valid, but illegality comes in. For instance, you have contracted to construct a building, but in the middle of construction, you start stealing cement. You start stealing cement, or you start using forced labor instead of using, instead of contracting people who are willing to work, and you start forcing them, then it means the contract is an illegal one. It changes the otherwise valid contract and it becomes null and void. Then another one is misrepresentation, another vitiating factor. Misrepresentation. Misrepresentation, it also means wrong representation. It means the person who has represented you wrongly. Like you are going to enter